Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Well, there's a new movie out, and it's entitled Coffee Shop. So who other than our own Steve Johnson should be on standby to talk to the person involved with Coffee Shop, a gentleman by the name of Dave Johnson. So let's get the Johnsons together to talk about Coffee Shop.
A few weeks ago, we talked with Kevin Sorbo, who's been in a lot of films that you have seen, as well as some upcoming stuff. You start looking at the bios of some of these actors, and I'll tell you, they have finished one project, but they're on several others. And we've got a guest today who is also a friend of Kevin Sorbo. This is like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but it's Kevin Sorbo this time. Dave Johnson is with us, and he's in Iowa now, but he spends a whole lot of time in Hollywood. Glad to have you with us, Dave.
Great to be with you, and thanks for having me. And I live not very far from Kevin, and we play golf together sometimes. So
I was going to ask you, how's he doing?
I've been on the road. I've been traveling, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So I haven't seen him in probably a month, but. The last time I talked to him, he was doing well.
Well, that's good. You know, you start looking at some of the things that you're involved in, and if you don't have a great daytimer, I would imagine you have a hard time keeping track of what have I just finished, what project is still in the work, and what do I have to start working on right now. Now, you've been a producer for, like, what, 20 years now, right?
Yeah, I started as an actor. I did that for about 8 years, made my living as an actor. Then I started to write, and then the writing exploded. So really, I view myself first and foremost as a writer now. But then because of writing, especially I was doing a lot of movies and TV, a lot of TV, and I became a showrunner, producer, writer. And so did that for a long time. And then I started to direct was the last thing, but I've been doing that now for 10, 15 years as well. So I kind of... It's all that training has sort of set me up for all these different projects that I have going on.
Well, you know, you're really on the fast track. We see about a lot of successful Hollywood actors who want to become directors, and that's like a huge jump for them. It sounds like you've just kind of eased into all of these types of things, doing what a lot of actors would have liked to have done, and yet here you go.
Yeah, it's been a great run. I've been doing this for quite a while, and at very high levels, and I'm very blessed and it's just kind of interesting how it's sort of progressed from one to the next, and I kind of feel like every time I'm ready for the next step, something happens. So
okay,
that's a good thing.
You got a film that's coming up that I want to talk about, but I still want to give a little bit of background. You've worked with Steven Spielberg for the ABC drama High Incident. You've worked with, I'm trying to look here and see what house haven't you worked with? Disney, Paramount, Sony, Warner Brothers, DreamWorks, MGM, Fox, ABC, NBC, CBS. Is there any one that you haven't worked for yet that isn't a major Hollywood studio?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, that's pretty good. So you've got the card to get into all of these things. You also executive produced October Baby that was out last year, I think it was, right?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago now, and then also Mom's Night Out, which was out this year.
Oh, I didn't know you were involved in that. Well, it's okay. It's hard to keep up with all of that type of thing. All right, let me. I want to give a preview of this. It's kind of a trailer. It's really a sneak preview of this movie that's coming up on Up TV, and it includes Kevin Sorbo, John Lovitz. It's great to see him. I mean, so many of us remember him from Saturday Night Live and then what he's done since then, and also Laura Vandervoort from Smallville and others. This is called Coffee Shop, and it is on Up TV coming up this weekend. Let's get a preview.
Those of us in the world of dating are warriors, competing on an often brutal battlefield.
I'll take the steak. Bloody.
This time last year, I had the perfect boyfriend. Handsome, successful, attentive, every girl's dream. But that was then. And this, well, this is now.
She keeps dating these losers, and if you love me, you would help me help her.
Hey, how'd opening night go?
The play tanked worse than the last one. They hated it.
No, hate is such a strong word. They loathed it.
This is quite the pep talk.
I know you've got another one in there.
What if I don't?
Why don't you just come down here for a while? Get out of the city.
But there is one thing that keeps even us wounded warriors in the battle. Hope that there really is a perfect someone out there for everyone.
Summertime. What's a guy like you doing in a town like this?
Oh, wait, let me guess. Research for your next big hit.
Investment banking's just my day job. I'm a playwright, too.
Is that right?
We should do lunch.
I will have a cup of tea.
So you have something against coffee?
Something's going around.
Want to dance?
Sure. So what are you gonna do?
There's nothing to do. He left and I stayed. That's it. If that was it, why is he writing you a message saying he needs to see you?
Patrick.
Did you see her face? It's definitely still there.
Isn't it beautiful?
Breathtaking.
Last year, we made the biggest mistake of our lives, and this is our chance to fix it.
Just because things aren't going the way you planned doesn't mean they aren't going the way they should.
If there's anything that's going to make you feel better right now, it's in that coffee shop.
Laura Vandervoort, Corey M. Grant, Rachel Hendricks, Jason Berkey, with John Lovitz and Kevin Sorbo. The world premiere movie, Coffee Shop. Love is brewing. Only on Uplifting Entertainment.
This is the perfect choice.
Well, that is coming up this Sunday. You know, I see a whole lot of things in there that probably you may have had an influence in. A writer who has a dry spell. It sounds like something a writer could end up having. I like that one line in there. No. They didn't hate it. They loathed it. I mean, I like those kind of lines. The only thing is I didn't see Morgan Freeman in there. What's up with that? Isn't he supposed to be in just about every film like this?
This was the one we could, he was too booked, we couldn't get him.
He was doing Dolphin 2 or something, I guess, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Dave, I want to ask you, this obviously, it's kind of got a chick flick feel to it. It's got a relationship thing. It's got what happens when life doesn't quite go the way you want and you think I'm going to go into a downward spiral and all the rest. I mean, this is kind of a family-friendly type movie. Wouldn't you put it in that category, perhaps?
Yeah, it's there's nothing objectionable for the family, but we really set out, we wanted to make a romantic comedy. We wanted to make a movie for
you have guests. Are they moving your furniture out? Is it?
Yeah, they're telling me I have to leave now. No, well, I'm good.
If it's Spielberg, bring him in and sit him down, okay? But that's okay. Keep going.
Okay. And so we wanted to make a movie that was, for adults, for romantic, for women particularly. I mean, it was really for women and Christian women particularly. Now, what I've really been surprised at is how much men love it. They really do. And we knew the women would love it, but men like it too. And it's it's a romantic comedy, got touching, heartfelt moments, uplifting. A lot of that kind of dialogue that you were talking about is throughout. I've seen it now with about 1,500 people in a bunch of different screenings. We did a theatrical run in Alabama. And, huge laughs all the way through, lots of tears, but happy tears, good tears. It's not a sad movie. It's uplifting. And huge response and applause and standing ovations and things at the end. So we're very, very happy with how it turned out. And the cast, as you saw, is just really appealing. Now, and two of them you didn't mention was Rachel Hendricks and Jason Berkey. And they play a couple in this. And they were the two leads of October Baby and played kind of a boyfriend-girlfriend in that. So that was really fun.
Oh, I got you. So was this something that you had a direct hand in getting some of these actors and actresses you have worked with in the past? Is this your overall vision of what you wanted to see happen?
Exactly. This was a script that was written by Teresa Preston, and then John Irwin came in and worked with her. And so when it came to me, it was sort of in a rough shape. And so Teresa and I started to work on the script, and they co-wrote October Baby. And so we started to work on the script, and I just loved it. And then when we got done, John and Andy Irwin were working on in the middle of Mom's Night Out, so they couldn't do it. And they said, Dave, you should direct this. You love this. You get this. And I said, I'd love to direct this. This is exactly the kind of movie I want to direct. It takes a bunch for me to sort of get to direct, because it means it's all consuming and you got to travel and there's a lot of things going on. Where writing, it's a little easier, but I said, this one I want to do. So we went down the list of, who was in it. We always knew, in fact, when they wrote it, it was really for Rachel Hendricks to play Becky, the sister of Laura Vandervoort. I knew Kevin, so I went to him personally and said, hey, I got a role. I think it'd be a lot of fun for you. So he said yes. Laura Vandervoort, I had known. She had done a couple of my shows. I had some success with a bunch of TV shows, Doc, Sue Thomas, FBI, some of your people know. And she's from Toronto, and we shot those in Toronto. And so she had done both of those shows 10 years ago. Since then, she's done V and Smallville and a bunch of other big stuff. And so I just thought she'd be perfect for this. And I was thrilled when she said yes. And then Jason Berkey was sort of the last. We said, could we pair Jason up with Rachel again? Would that be a good thing, or would people not like that from October Baby? But I'm so glad we did, because they had such great chemistry, and they're very different in this movie than they were in the others. They're very funny. It's a funny movie that women for sure really love, but men really do too, and that's kind of surprised me.
I just want to mention to our viewers and listeners, we're talking to Dave Johnson, the director and producer of Coffee Shop, that is airing this Sunday. I have a question for you. We're seeing the lack of influence of the Alphabet Network, ABC, CBS, NBC, cable, and some are going direct, of course, to video. A lot of productions not even hitting the theaters, not even going to any of the channels that way. So we've got a diverse style, I guess you'd say, trends, where we've got like Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, Underworld, Dracula. Well, you got that dark element. Then we have the family-friendly side that seems to also have a lot of an audience. Where are we now? Is family-friendly movies, are they drawing a lot of people to as viewers this time? Are we in that kind of a trend, do you think?
Yeah, they always work. I mean, you go back in time, if you do them well, they've always worked. There's never been a case where they don't. Now, what happens is oftentimes people don't respect those movies, and so they just say, well, this doesn't offend anybody, so we'll put it out as a family-friendly movie. And you go, that's not what it's about. This has to inspire, it has to entertain, it has to, make people laugh, cry, care. And if you do it well, they work. And there's not that many outlets who want it or who are asking for it. Everybody's sort of saying, oh, we want to push the dark envelope as far as we can. And you go, well, that's great, that's fine, it's your network, you can do whatever you want to. But, we got a lot of that, and there's not as much of the positive and stuff. And so when a network like Up came along, Up TV, I love those guys, and if your viewers don't know them, they should check them out, because they really want to do this stuff. I mean, Up stands for uplifting, and they want uplifting, entertaining, good time. Again, that doesn't mean you can't have feelings, and it can't be deep. It can. But it means that you're going to, at the end of the movie, you're going to feel better than you did at the beginning of the movie. And for me, that's what it's about. All
right, Dave, we could talk so much more. I find it fascinating, kind of the inner workings of what goes on to make movies like this and what the trends are. We'll have to let it go at that. Coffee Shop, Sunday, during the evening. You can check it out. Dave Johnson, director, producer of a whole lot of stuff, including Coffee Shop. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. And they can go to uptv.com and see behind the scenes and previews and things if they want. And I think they'll enjoy it.
All right. When you see Kevin, tell him we said hi, okay?
I will for sure. He's a good guy.
Well, there you go. I just don't understand the connection between Johnson's and coffee. Must be a big deal. All right. Stick around. We got some great guests coming up next here on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Welcome back to Focus Today, and delighted to have back in the studio with us today our good friend Daniel Ogan. He's a consultant, a teacher, an artist, a therapist. He heads up the E Agency. And I just love this man's spirit and the way he goes about things. And, well, I tell you what, we have a lot to talk about today. Daniel, good to see you. How you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you, Perry?
Great. Doing fine. And by the way, let me just say to our viewers and listeners, theeagency.com is his website. The E as in Ed, theeagency.com is his website. And if you would like to email him, maybe after our conversation today, you may want to email him. And if so, it is Donald Ogan, O-G-A-N, at hotmail.com. Is that right?
Perfect.
Donald Ogan at hotmail.com if you want to send him an email. Well, we're going to take on a tough subject today, the subject of loss and death and grieving. And these are always tough moments in everybody's life. We all experience these at different levels. And but you have a very personal story because you lost a child, and I did not know that about you.
Right. Yes, it was about 22 years ago, Perry.
Oh.
And I was living in Montana, and my son Elton had just graduated from high school, and he came to visit me. We went hiking, and we were, for his graduation present, I was taking him to Europe. We had arranged everything, and I had been living over in Prague at that time, not really living a righteous life. I was, you know, I had been Orthodox, but I was not living the faith. I was doing my own thing. In fact, in Prague, I had a friend and I had opened up a pub there, of all things. During the whole Soviet collapse thing, we were trying to make some money. And I was going to bring Elton up to a vacation and maybe work with me. You know, I wasn't thinking straight. But anyhow, we went hiking up in the mountains. I remember it extremely well. It was a cold evening. It was March. Started snowing, and you know, Elton, basically in front of me, had an accident and died. And it was in the night. The snow was falling. And I remember because we had hiked different places and he didn't come back, so we had went hunting for him. When we found him, it was like all night looking for him. And at that moment, looking at this, the first thing that went through my mind was, this is one thing that you cannot put a spin on. You cannot manipulate death. It hit me just like nothing else in this whole world could hit anyone. Because at that point, you are forced to believe. Do you believe that there is a resurrection? Because as I told you, I was an Orthodox Christian, but I had not been following that. And at that moment of truth, it was no longer theology. It was no longer part of some class. This was reality. And I knew, it was like crystal clear, that I had a decision to make even right then, which way I was going to take this grief process. Because I understood by my teachings that I could take the grief of this world, which causes death, or through our Lord Jesus Christ, take my grief, and it still will be grief, that's sorrow, but it will turn to righteousness through repentance. And I had to make that decision at that moment.
Wow. What'd you do?
Fortunately, I had just contacted, for some reason, my bishop in the Orthodox Church, and I had not been to church for a long time, but I went through a confession. I don't know why. About 2 weeks earlier, I just felt a stirring, and he called me up on that mountain, and he said, "Daniel, I know you, and here is something you have to do. I'm giving you," and in Orthodoxy, we believe in the whole concept that sometimes we will receive direction. He says, "You are the kind of person that must do something." And I'm saying, "How much money do you have?" And I said, "About $1,000. He goes, "Buy a ticket after this whole thing's over to Russia. It's collapsing. Put your gifts to work there." He goes, "That is the way that you will work through this grief."
Wow. All right, let's go back to the loss, the suddenty of the loss, the untimeliness of a loss. This happens, you know, whether it's through an accident or an illness. If you're elderly, I guess you process it differently. But if it's a young person, you are really struggling to, why'd this happen? Where was God? Why would he allow something like this to occur? Did you go through all of that?
Okay, that's a good question, because to most of us, when a child dies, and my son was very close to me, let's just take, because there's all kinds of different deaths. An unexpected death of a child full of life, you are faced with something that is very difficult to go through, meaning the extinguishing of life. Before that, it's an abstraction. That morning we got up, had coffee, breakfast. I didn't know that day that was Elton's last day on this earth. And you're faced with that. Yes, you're asking all these questions. But to tell you the truth, at that moment it made me question this whole earth, because after that death, nothing was the same. Because you know what happens then? Then you realize anything can happen. What about your other children? Where they don't call up. I mean, that fear. And what happens is that it's like a knife going to your heart and making a wound that I can tell you this the truth. That wound will not heal. It is something that will be there, but it can be used. It can change you. It can give you compassion. It can make you a different person. It is an energy. And that is something to really remember.
If a little bit of a hypothetical, if I had lost a child, you know, let's say, and I'll say a child from in their 40s and down. How old was your boy?
18.
Okay, so in your 40s and down, and we're a believing family. Whether it's through an accident or an illness or whatever, what would you tell me when I'm in this incredible level of grief, struggling to say, okay, God, where are you in this? What's going on here? Why did this happen?
Okay. At this moment, cognitive communication is not going to work. Me convincing your brain about something, giving you a logical answer, giving you some kind of process at that moment, at that exact moment, that person needs something deeper than that. And I don't know if you can even articulate what that is. But if I went up to you at that moment and I put my arms around you and I said, I'm with you, very humbly, and I was there, right there, that's the beginning. Because I'm having to respect your grief. There's a respect there. That's a process that I must respect and tread it very carefully.
You mentioned that this pain never goes away. I get that. I understand that. Whether it's a sudden death or even the death of an elderly person, there's a loss. There's a missing part in your life, right? But it also, Scripture says, it's better to go to the house of mourning than it is to the house of praise. It's there where we kind of analyze and we take inventory and we prioritize who we are, what we believe. Do we really believe the book, the Bible? Do we really believe what Jesus said? Do we really believe that he's there when he seemed not to have been there when we wanted him? Okay, I want you to respond to all of that. All right, Daniel Ogan's with us. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
We're back with our good friend Daniel Ogan, and he is a counselor and a therapist, and he has the E Agency. You can go to his website, theeagency.com, and he operates differently. In many cases, he comes to you. You don't go to him, but all that can be arranged. But you're going to find his gentleness and his experience and his giftings certainly to be of the Lord. And you can email him at Donald Ogan, O-G-A-N, at hotmail.com. Donald Ogan at hotmail.com. We're talking about grief and the loss of a child. And this is a difficult subject, but it does happen. I just walked two families through this in the last month. And I think you said it so well, that the best thing you can do is just be there and not try to have the answer, because there are no answers. I don't care what the question is, there doesn't seem to be a right answer at a time like that. You just got to let this thing kind of go through a season of grieving and kind of calming down. But when we went into the break, we were dealing with, trying to balance what's happened with our faith. And we're bringing in the reality that, all right, this happens. We're all appointed. We're all going to die. We're all appointed to that date. But it's also a time of priority and inventory of our faith, don't you think?
Very well put, because let me tell you, if I might, the process that I went through, and I know many other people had gone through the same thing after talking to many people about the same thing. First of all, that grief, it's real. After all, Jesus wept over his friend Lazarus. And yet, what happened to me was this. Over a series of processes, I went to Russia, I lived there, and I started to understand that this world is not my home. It brought me back to my faith, meaning I put no hope on this planet. No houses, no material, nothing. Because it made me understand, we are here, but 18 years, 30 years, 90 years, it's part of the process. So my whole perspective has changed on that, because after this death of my child, I went to Russia and I was acquainted with a lot of death. I seen a lot of things. And I had to put that in perspective and how that is worked out within the human soul. And there's only one way. We are told that this is but a shadow, and that there is a kingdom. And when you talk about coming and putting our faith back into it, the early church, the martyrs, would go to their death with praises on their lips. Why? They believed in the other kingdom, and so do I. There is no way that myself personally could have gone into the things that I had seen without a belief, without a confidence that this world is, in fact, not my home.
Very temporal.
That's temporal.
And very seasonal.
Very seasonal. And that has also put in perspective everything else that I work with people.
Yeah.
For example, a drug addict. Well, he's going to live and die. Some people can quit drugs, but they're still terrible people. There's other issues what can happen to our heart, because as far as I'm concerned, this world is all a process to connect us and to get us ready for the kingdom.
After the loss of a loved one, especially a child, and you said, even in your own case, the losing of your son, that there is really no, the scar is always there. But then there's a healing. So how do you process a scar to a healing?
Well, the process is not easy. Okay, I would like to say that I went through it easy, but it wasn't. It's a long story. The time in Russia, what happened, but by starting to work at it and allowing that, not ignoring it, but then working with other people, that's what helped me. Working on the street with people in Russia, seeing other things, taking my grief and putting it aside and going out and doing something. And it took years for me to be able even to handle it. I didn't even want to come back to America for years and years and years. The pain was so much.
But are you saying that the answer was to give of yourself?
Exactly. To give of yourself. To have, and I know that that's a hard process. I mean, that's a hard thing to say, because at that point, you want to isolate.
That isolation can be very dangerous.
It can be.
And I know Christians who have experienced what you've experienced, and they find comfort in at least they give the appearance, I should say, that they find comfort in the isolation, or they find comfort in the real pain turns to a protective pain. I don't know if that makes sense, but they seem to find a place where without it they are uncomfortable, and with it they're more comfortable. So therefore you kind of wonder, do they ever process through this where they can give of themselves again?
But Perry, there is a time to where you do spend time alone to reflect on it.
Right.
I know that I did in some crummy apartment downtown Moscow almost a whole year, seeing the seasons come and go through the window. But then after that period, it's enough. I went out, started doing things, started getting back involved, because if this world's not my home, my next thought was, then what am I to do here?
Yeah. You know, the other part of this, Daniel, is this. Biblical grieving is entirely different than what we are led to believe today. I find it interesting that we'll have a memorial, we'll say some good things, we'll do some eulogies, and we pay our respects and we move on. And we forget that this family is still in this grieving process. And in Bible days, it went on for quite a while, and there was tremendous community support that came alongside during that time.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tendency to think that the funeral or the service is kind of like, well, you know, we've turned the page, now we move on, and we abandon this family that's still in this very difficult stage. And yet grieving is it's very biblical.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I worry about people that don't grieve. They just turn a page and move on. I kind of go, what's really going on here?
Everybody goes through their own grief, their own time, and their way. One person may not show it, but inside they're dying. Another person might show it profusely. One person works it out one way, another person works out the other way. But one thing that you said was extremely important. The grief goes on, and we need to surround those people who are going through that grief, and not in a flashy way, to be there.
Yeah.
For a period. Hey, it takes a period of time. And even now, I have to be careful to think about it, because it's very easy for me to go back into that grief. It never leaves in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you learn to live with it. And what happens then? When you go through that, it's like something leaves your eyes and you can see things clearly in many different ways. It changes you. And I think, as you talk about godly grief, changes you through repentance for a much purer way with our dear Lord.
Did you ever become angry with God or disappointed that it happened, that He allowed it to happen?
No, I have to be honest, I did not. I became angry with myself.
Did you feel responsible for it?
In some ways. I look back at things I could have done, or I mean, you know that, yeah.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
And then I think of the life that I was living. All that comes into play.
But God redeemed all that.
He redeemed it. He did. There is redemption of all that, but it doesn't happen easily.
What do you say to a family that loses a loved one who through illness, who has prayed profusely for healing and it doesn't come?
What can you say? It's something like that. It depends on who they are and the circumstances. I don't think that I have any set answer, because there's many things that I don't know. I just trust. I do not know why they happen, but the whole idea of it is we can't see everything.
The Bible says the hard things belong to God, and I guess that is an answer, but it doesn't dethrone God because these things happen.
No, it doesn't dethrone him at all.
Because we're living in a fallen world. Sin and disease, murder and terrorism is happening.
It can happen in a heartbeat. The worst thing is not death. The worst thing is to lose our soul.
Yeah.
And when we put that in perspective, think about this, Perry. As you get older, and I know I do too, don't sometimes you just think you long for the kingdom?
Yeah.
You have this hunger.
Yeah, you do. You begin to contemplate what is heaven.
There we go. I do too.
You know, what is it? I mean, you've studied it, you read about it, you think about it, and then you realize, wait a minute, you're going to spend a whole lot more time there than you are here. You know, all of a sudden the thinking, the balances change, you know, and you begin to realize, oh, wait a minute here. I translate that into, to me, hardcore evangelism, and I say that passionately. I mean, I don't know, I've been involved on several cases, and most recently, where a child has been lost. And I loved your answer by having no answer, because that is the answer, just being there. But it also makes you stop and think about, wait a minute, what are we doing? What are we doing? Is our life radiating Christ, and are we leading people to Him, or are we just on our own agenda? You know?
Exactly, and excuse me, but one of the things I teach even my, also another thing is I entered life again. I have 2 small children, 6 and 8. Now that takes an act of faith, because knowing that they could be taking a look at this world. But one of the things I teach my children from now, even now, is you're going to die. We live, we die. That's one thing I do not want to leave out of their education, because that's an important thing. This isn't our home. And any missionary who's worked in terrible circumstances where there's death and around them, they have to have that perspective.
Well, Daniel, you're an inspiration. Let me just tell our viewers and listeners, you can go to his website. It's called the E Agency. E is in Edward. What's the E stand for? Excellence.
Excellence.
Okay, the E Agency. E is in excellence, agency.com, or you can email Daniel, excuse me, if you want to be in touch with him. Donald Ogan, I'm getting it all messed up. Donald Ogan, O-G-A-N, at hotmail.com. And he can answer your emails. Thanks for coming in, friend. Thanks for being so transparent and sharing your heart. I know that those are tough moments. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Always a delight to have Dr. Joe Klein with us today, and he's a physician there at Ventana Wellness, and we want to talk about kind of a hormone testosterone update. Now, I realize this gets a little interesting at times, but no matter where you turn, Dr. Klein, these ads are all over television, and they're embarrassing.
Right.
They're just flat embarrassing.
Well, which ads are you talking about? Because they're the ones for the products, and then they're the ones now for the personal injury lawyers who are trying to drum up
but
it's
the
a class action
primarily.
lawsuit. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to address, and actually use that as an example of things about medical research.
Okay.
So
it just seems like that the whole subject, testosterone levels for men, has come online, and then you got a gazillion products, and of course they're wrapping it around sensuality and selling a ton of these things. And Are they any good? What's it all about?
Again, they're certainly, obviously anything is going to be used to promote more money. We're certainly seeing, I think, that people are arguing that we're treating things that just were always there but not a problem before. I think maybe there's some of that, but there's certainly one of the things that we're certainly seeing. Now, unfortunately, testosterone has been abused enough by enough people, bodybuilders and the like, that the FDA wound up, basically, actually the DEA classifying it as a federally controlled substance.
Right.
But what you're having, and whether there's a real andropause where men lose hormones, we're certainly seeing declining levels. I think there's a certain issue of functioning as we get older, that things that were just blamed on aging are actually declining hormone levels. And with men, we're not just talking about sexual functioning. I'm talking about energy, sleep, anxiety, all kinds of issues that I'm seeing that are related to lower testosterone. I think we're seeing an accelerated rate of lower testosterone in men. I'm seeing it in younger men. And it really, again, I think is coming down to the big three of diet, stress, and environmental toxins.
Okay. I got to put stress at the top of that.
Stress at the top, but not in these younger guys. Why am I seeing 20 guys in their 20s and 30s with a problem? Certainly stress in the older guys over time. We know that overactivation of the stress hormone axis, cortisol and all the rest, decreases hormone levels. Absolutely. Other things that are medications like chronic narcotics and chronic pain patients, and chronic antidepressant use so we want to classify that as an environmental toxin to some degree.
Yes.
That is causing lower testosterone. I think another issue are this is a tougher one to prove because they haven't looked at it in the right way, but the compounds called phthalates that are estrogenic hormone disruptors that we get from plastics. And the bisphenol A has gotten more press recently and all of those things. And I think we're actually, because of what women are doing to their unborn babies, and they actually did a study up at University of Rochester where they looked at the phthalate levels in the urine of these pregnant women through their pregnancy, and then looked at their male babies. And in the way that this is defined anatomically, the women with the highest phthalate levels in their urine had baby boys that had what was termed more feminized genitalia. Now, I don't think they even looked at these babies later on. What did that mean for their testicular function? This was an anatomic difference that we can get into the details about, wow, but it very well may be, yes, the prenatal toxin and the estrogenic hormone disruptors of pesticides are in there, but certainly the plastics are affecting males. So now we're seeing 20 guys in their 20s and 30s with functionally low testosterone levels. And this is the problem. It's not reaching the point where medicine will agree to define it as a disease. So they don't like it. Because this is a functional issue that clearly is affecting the quality of people's lives in many ways, and not just sexual functioning. Focus, concentration, like I say, mood, sleep, all of these can be related to testosterone.
All right. You have an interesting email here about the green drink you have every morning.
Well, that's something that that's a different topic we can talk about. Just basically, this is what we do in a lot of these using a mega blender like a Vitamix or a Blendtec. People have the bullets. I don't know if you can make enough with this. It's making like 2 quarts and blending, not just juicing, a lot of raw vegetables. We do this, number one, and we're getting rid of, these is people with chronic inflammatory diseases, certainly autoimmune diseases, and people with chronic gastrointestinal problems where, based on my assessment, they have an overgrowth of yeast and bad bacteria in their gut. And we put in, salad mix and cucumber and celery and all these different things. We keep out the root vegetables, only put like 1 carrot. We limit the fruit because we don't want to put too much sugar in there. And this is alkalinizing to the body, so it helps people with inflammation. I had one lady with rheumatoid arthritis who after 3 days on it felt a difference. But this is something we counsel people in the office for.
Right.
That's a different issue.
Oh, different issue. But if you want to address him on that, make an appointment.
We actually have a nutritional counselor also that will work with people on doing that to make it palatable for themselves.
What are the signs of low testosterone?
Well, all the things that I mentioned. Obviously, not only the sexual functioning issue and libido, but again, motivation. initiative. Now that can just be blown off as depression. And I've seen, both ways. Anxiety, low initiative, poor sleep, yes, those can be signs of depression. But I've seen the path go both ways. I've seen guys that you give them testosterone and their whole life changes. Yes, and I've seen guys, I gave them testosterone, even though it was low, it didn't make the difference, and lo and behold, we wound up using an antidepressant. Darn if that didn't help them. So it's not as easy to define. The best way that I know is if somebody does have a functionally low testosterone level, treat them. See what gets better, and we treat them to the point, and this is one of the things that will go along with the study, where we make sure that their blood level is up in the upper half, certainly, of the normal range, where we know they should be getting a response. And if they don't, then it's like, wow, then it looks like maybe something else is going on.
All right, and all this is done through blood tests.
Yes, we do it all through blood tests. I mean, alternative practitioners who can't order blood tests may do saliva, but there's very good parameters, and urine tests, very good parameters for using blood tests that we use.
And so all right, so you're low in testosterone. How do you bring that up? I mean,
well, that's the issue. So a lot of the times it can be done with topical preparations. These are what are being advertised on that the drug companies have come up with. They've come up with an alcohol-based underarm thing, or these topical creams and foams and the like.
Do they work?
They do for a lot of people, but for a lot of people they don't. Is what I find is that they don't get the level up high enough. And we actually have to go to injections, which patients can self-administer. We show them how to do it. It's fairly simple. But this is one of the issues. And the thing is, they're charging so much for the commercial preparations. I mean, yeah, $400 to $500 retail a month, that the insurance companies, when they'll cover it, you have to have a certain below a certain level of blood on your blood level for them to cover it. But even if the insurance companies will cover it, they're charging a $45 to $80 copay per prescription because the drug companies are charging so much for it. So a lot of times we prefer to do this with a compounding pharmacy. We can adjust the dose exactly for that patient. And for a lot of the compounding pharmacies, quite frankly, I hate to say this, but I will. I would prefer to give the economic benefits to local businesses rather than to the big chains that are headquartered in wherever, and to the insurance companies, if I can guarantee that my patient is getting a good product. That's the thing. I don't want to sacrifice the quality, but we have a number of pharmacies in the area that do provide good quality that we like to use for that.
Joel, this is so prevalent. We see it everywhere. Everybody's talking about it now, so it's no longer a closet issue. It's very much in the forefront.
And just like anything else, whenever there's an economic gain to be found, it will be overblown. So not every man who has a problem has a testosterone problem. And I've had, quite frankly, patients who the problem was really in the marriage and their relationship, but the wife insisted that they get their testosterone checked. And as I explore it, that's not their issue.
Do you think this will ever head to over-the-counter?
No. No, well, not with real testosterone.
Okay.
Yeah, that's way too potent. I'd say it's now it's a controlled substance.
Okay.
It's like, going over the counter morphine.
Can you OD it?
You could. You really have to if you take too much, and the signs are what we know from the bodybuilders and the people who did. It's the acne and road rage and and those kind of steroid overdose. Yeah, but it's not something you do one time. It has to be chronic doses over time that you'll push your blood levels too high.
I got about a minute left. How often do you check patients for their levels?
Once we have them stable, every 6 months. In the beginning, I'll do it every 6 to 8 weeks till I get them where I want them, and then they also need a blood count and a liver panel, because occasionally we find people whose blood gets too thick or develop liver enzymes, but not very often.
Well, great. Thanks, buddy.
Okay.
And again, he's back quite often. We'll get into green drinking.
Okay. Well, I want to get into that one study, so we have to. That's where all the lawsuits are coming from. That is actually quite questionable.
We'll take a look at that. All right, VentanaWellness.com is the website. VentanaWellness.com. Dr. Joel Klein, he's a physician there, and you can call and make an appointment to see him there. VentanaWellness.com. Thanks for coming in, buddy.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. and you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.